Kimberly Crail is a wise woman, herbalist, and educator who came from Wall Street to the weeds. Casey's mission is to teach folks how to heal themselves using whole plants and foods as medicine. You can heal yourself with simple and inexpensive methods, foods, and herbs. And now, here's the host of Weeds of Wisdom, Kimberly Crail.
Welcome, everybody. It's so nice to see you. For Tuesday, April the 15th, it's tax day here in the United States, if you still do that sort of thing. And I'm very excited that I have two guests this evening that I just have mad love and respect for. And they've really deepened my journey into the energetic and sort of off-planet aspects of our reality. So I'm going to be very excited to talk to them. We're going to have Tony Rodrigues and Dan Willis. And so, yeah, I'm very, very excited. We're going to be speaking with them. So, I did quite a 180 in terms of my own life. I was a Wall Street finance professional. I traveled around the world. I was all into that sort of career track, being the first person to go to college in my family, and the second to graduate high school. And so when that came crashing down, that was sort of my whole life. And I worked for the world's biggest junk food company, PepsiCo. And then in 2008, I did a shamanic herbal apprenticeship that really changed my life. And I couldn't go back to that world. I had actually changed. And so that wasn't me anymore. It didn't fit. So instead, I work in real estate, and now I'm in Florida as a wholesale mortgage broker. But the point is, it's quite a transformation. So we all have very interesting pasts that I think, this experience is the real teacher, right? Words don't really teach. And what I did learn is that as a business person is that every business has a business model. And fortunately in our medical system, that business model does not include making you well. And so I actually don't sell products. I teach you how to make your own simple, powerful, and inexpensive medicines at home using whole plants and foods. And really more about how to choose which thing is right for you, which plant or which remedy or whatever might be, right? So people often say body, mind, and spirit. I think that's backwards. I think it's spirit, then mind, then body, to get the lasting results that you want. So every week, we always sing. And this is my website, Ancient Mother Wisdom. If you want more information or want to book a consult with me, you can do so there. But singing is said to open up our other side, our right brain, if you will. We use our left brain most of the time. When I'm speaking, I'm using both hemispheres of my brain. But when I'm reading, I'm using the left hemisphere. So what we want to do is we want to relax our left brains, our ego minds, and we want to shift our frequency and vibration into a relaxed state. And that'll help engage our right brains holographically, because our right brains are what take that holographic picture of everything, not in a linear way. And as St. Hildegard said, music can transform the world. So this is a Seneca prayer. It's actually been recorded by a woman named Lisa Thiel, Thiel. I don't believe any relation to Peter Thiel. But anyway, so please sing along. The words are here. It's very simple. Sacred Corn Mother, come to me. Make my way sacred. Fill me with beauty. Sacred Corn Mother, come to me. Make my way sacred, fill me with beauty. Fill me with beauty. Fill me with beauty. Fill me with beauty, that I may bring others beauty. So So what is health anyway? We talked about this last week, but I wanted to just draw your attention to the third bullet here in Susan Weed's definition of health. We want to nourish health, wholeness, and holiness in each unique individual, aware of the holographic interconnectedness of all things. And so this concept of hologram keeps coming up, right? So again, I don't sell products. If you'd like to support me, please feel free to do so. You can donate any amount or nothing, but certainly be happy to have your support if that's within you. And so my guest tonight, first, Tony Rodrigues. Wow, a 20-year tour experiencer, author of really his autobiography, Series Colony Cavalier, which blew me away, absolutely blew me away. I was fortunate enough to meet Tony last year at Full Disclosure Now, and its sequel, Project Star Maker, and then the book Beyond Sight. He hosts a weekly Talks with Tony, a Patreon group focused on disclosure and consciousness expansion and remote viewing. He's also created a memory recall course for others who suspect they might have been involved in similar programs, as well as remote viewing classes. In Beyond Sight, The Hidden History of Remote Viewing and Psychic Energetics, Tony discloses the advanced possibilities of the human mind, sharing his personal experiences and the knowledge he gained from these programs. Tony aims to shed light on the hidden potential within us all and the profound impact of psychic energetics. And then I wanted to talk a little bit. Oh, wait, where's Dan? Where's Dan? I've lost Dan. Oh, there he is. Sorry, Dan, you were out of order there. So, yeah, so Dan Willis, sorry about that, guys. I got my slides kind of backwards there, but yeah, so Dan, in 2001, you might actually remember a much younger Dan Willis, who was one of the Disclosure Project's top secret military witnesses that testified at the National Press Club and in DC, in front of the mainstream media of the world. Many of us have forgotten about that. Maybe some of you weren't born yet. But essentially, this World Disclosure event was asking for a congressional hearing to expose the illegal secret government operations, the ET presence, and to release ET-derived technologies. The requested congressional hearing was denied, of course, and the legacy media sanitized any public disclosure. Back in 1977, Dan experienced an ET interaction that was part of a science transfer program to our planet. And this experience led him into researching the work of in science of crystals and consciousness with IBM senior scientist Dr. Marcel Vogel. And decades later, in 2022, it's funny how these things you know, come back in unexpected and exciting ways. But decades later, he made a connection with an ongoing transfer of information regarding the advanced science of crystals with an off-planet Pleiadean scientist. And this was done is being done today through a quantum communication implant in his friend Elena Danaan, who's been acting as an emissary for the Galactic Federation of Worlds. Now, these exchanges have been ongoing ever since that, and have been giving technology knowledge that can potentially be used on our planet for beneficial applications, as well as understandings into the nature of consciousness and the geometry of the holographic matrix of reality. So that's kind of the theme this evening. So without further ado, let me introduce Tony and Dan. Hey, how are you doing, fellas?
Hello, doing really good. Thanks for having us.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Great to see you. So I suspect our audience on this new platform has a good understanding of your backgrounds, but But let's, it's very interesting to me because, Tony has actually had the physical experience of, sort of transporting through time and space and being healed through some amazing technology. And Dan, you've got the science chops, if you will, in terms of understanding perhaps, the structure around how all of that works. And so maybe we could start, let's, Tony, I know your story. I read your book. It's amazing. And really, I just have so much mad respect for you in terms of your experience. And also, by the way, I've been doing some of that recall work. And I've got some interesting dreams, recurring dreams when I was a kid and some things like that. So I'm kind of, maybe, I don't know, piecing some things together. We'll see. But, when I'm ready, we'll take that on. But tell us more about your experience, Tony.
And I don't know. Is that a loaded question?
No. I mean, the 20 and back. So basically, you essentially got snatched and sent off planet for a 20 and back, and it was kind of done out of a nasty thing by a kid in your school, is what I understand. So
yeah, I was shoehorned in the side of the program. I wasn't meant for the program, and so I was kind of swept into it by people that just had access and for whatever reason power tripped about it. So, and the first 7 or 8 years I was on the Earth, I didn't go into space. I've gone through places here on the Earth. And the first program was a black program that was psychoenergetics and advanced remote viewing techniques, research. It wasn't about techniques. They weren't teaching us to be awesome. They were researching countermeasures and advanced methods of remote viewing. Then I was shipped off and did other services for those years, and then finally sold into the secret space program, which is in our solar system and beyond. And I worked on ships up there. What is turned out to be fortuitous is that the places I were on Earth have evidence. So I've been able to go places and describe them accurately, what's in there behind that door. And it turned out, because there were places that I remembered that I can both prove that I've never been to, because I've always had a family or somebody around, and that I can prove that I have been to in the 20 and back, because I know my way around them. So around Seattle and in California at the Inyo Kern Ridgecrest area. And it turned up a wealth of data, a wealth of supportive evidence over my testimony. And the takeaway is that, they could put me in a program with ETs, in conjunction with ETs. So these are humans in our government or in our corporate world that have access to extraterrestrials, and they sent ETs to pick me up and take me and use me for 20 years. And then through exotic technology, put me right back the same night. So I woke up the next morning a different person. I felt like I'd been gone for 20 years, but I did not have the memory of what happened. And I got on with my life and lived my life until I got my memory recall. The evidence behind my testimony, I just want to wrap this up. I don't want to be too wordy. I know we have plenty of time.
Yeah.
I don't want to be too wordy, but I just want to say that all the evidence that I've been able to find supports that this happens to a lot of people, so that this is real. If one thing is real, then it's all real. And if this is happening to a lot of people, potentially millions of people, then this is a phenomenon we need to address. We need to stand on our feet about this. And I guess that's the real significance of it. That's the whole thing that I've ever just tried to do, is like say, look, I don't care if you believe me right or wrong, or if you don't like me or whatever, but this is real and this is possible, So that's what I do. Well, and then since then, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I can just say that, having actually, when I met you, I get a big sense of people, from how their, I don't know, their aura or their vibration or something. And I've been deceived in the past, but you just strike me as true, and so,
Thank you.
in all respects. And so I appreciate that very much. And you know, really, I think this is maybe news, but you know, the ancient, you know, native peoples, you know, knew about this, right? They understood a lot of these energies, and the fact that we weren't alone in the universe, and a lot about the geometries and really the movement of the planets and the stars and how those all impact us. So you know, it's sort of like, oh, we're just remembering, right? What you know, we've known, right? But we're seeing it in a different way, because now we have this thing called science and technology, which gives us a different language through which to express it. And I guess math, right? That's where you come in, Dan. That's your specialty, right?
Well, I'm just a student. I'm still learning.
Right? Aren't we all?
I've grateful to being able to receive this information. It's expanded my understanding of the holographic reality that we are in, and the relationship to you know, consciousness, and you know, these clear items called crystals, and how it interfaces. Yeah, and I'm continuing to learn more.
Cool. And I'm learning about how to play with the screen layout. Sorry about that. Well, you know, it's really fascinating to me. And one of the things that I found this book. Actually, it found me many years ago, called the Gaia Project. And I don't know if you're familiar with it. I've only met one other person in my life who's ever read it, but it fell off the bookshelf twice at me at a Borders, and so usually I take that as a, you know, sign. And it, you know, basically laid out the, you know, if you will, the way the universe is laid out. And just let me just show you kind of what the whole, you know, basic Cliff's Notes version of this thing is, right? Which is basically, you know, all things in the universe vibrate with their own frequencies, and each different world vibrates within a different dimension, and they all coexist simultaneously. And a dimension can be a band of vibrational frequencies. And then in this book, they talk about the universe being 10 dimensions, the 10th highest frequencies to the first dimension, which is the lower frequencies, etc. And that the 10th dimension is the source frequency at the center. And it looks something like, you know, this, right, where the source, you know, emanates, and that supposedly 5 beings from the origin source, or the first consciousness in this 10th dimension, spread out through the rest of the universe, and they're simultaneously present. And each galaxy gets administered a little bit differently. And the reason that Earth is so different, the Gaia Project, is that usually beings stay in their own dimensional star system, where but what the origin source beings were thinking was, hey, wouldn't it be interesting if we had this contrasting environment where we have this place where all the different dimensional beings can interact, and through their interaction create a special form of energy, which would expand the universe even further. So it's an interesting thought. Not really sure what I believe about it, but when I first read it, I thought it was complete bunk. And over the years, I've come back to it a number of times and said, maybe not, because what we do know is, you know, we do see that, you know, we do live in a multidimensional universe. I mean, there's no question about it. And we even know the math, and now that we're getting into quantum science, we know a lot more about how it works. And what we understand also is how we are really source energy, a part of which is projected into a physical body. So I'll stop talking now and let you fellas take it up. But sort of that's where I'm coming from, and I'm so interested in this idea that, you know, there are different dimensions and different frequencies, and explains so much about what we see, not only here on planet Earth, but maybe in the cosmos. So, any thoughts on
Tony,
that?
you want to take this one, or should I?
Well, I was just going to say that everything that I've been studying is close to that. I mean, I don't have a lot about the interdimensional physics. I'm still working on things in our dimension, but I was aware in the space program that things went out of phase, that there are dimensional layers, that there are ships could phase, and it was a form of invisibility for them. And they're, slightly out of our dimension. So that was a reality. And there were other travel. Sadly, I didn't have a lot of security clearance when I was up there. So I was doing a menial job. I don't know, Dan, this is kind of right up your alley. I think this is kind of your answer.
Yeah, for the last 3 years, I've been asking questions from Jen Hanna-Radian, who, when I first started asking questions, he was going to university in the Pleiades, learning how to be a star maker, like Tony's book, terraforming planets. Currently, he's on Mars right now on the Ares Prime complex, and they're doing terraforming operations. He's actually working alongside Terran engineers. And the last communication was they were preparing for the Earth colonies to arrive in the next 2 years. And this is, I'll share with you what he shared with me about the structure of the universe and regarding densities. And, when you say the term dimensions, I see that the same term being universes, okay? And densities are within these universes. I have a little slide here if you want to put that up.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think you're still on your slide.
Oh, I hit remove. Okay. Add to stage. There
we go. Yeah. Their understanding of science is 300 years more advanced than our understanding. And essentially, the flower of life pattern, this simple little pattern which you can make with a compass of circles, has embedded within it incredible complex formulas that are basically the blueprint of creation, and that there are an infinite number of dimensional spheres. We are in one of these dimensional spheres. And instead of 10 densities, Jen has shared that there's 12 densities, where the 13th is source, but very, very close to what you were sharing. And that source emanates from a level of near perfection at the frequency of love. And that when it creates, it's like a harmonics or octaves. It creates down into the lower densities, which you could see like at the outer peripheral.
Right.
The lower don't affect the higher densities affect the lower. And as a being evolves, through love, bridges us from the lower densities into the higher densities, you become closer to source, which is always moving toward evolution and closer to perfection. That's why a lot of times they look better than us. And the frequency of love is more prominent in beings that have moved into a higher density. Now, all of these dimensional spheres, they exist within what is called the void. The void, like the name, is void of everything. A void of time, void of space. Because of this nature of the void, there are these dimensional bubbles, you could say, that go into infinity, of which we're just one, exist in non-linear space. which causes irregularities. That's why all these bubbles are different sizes. Different bubbles have different densities. There's formulas for our particular dimensional bubble, you could say, that Jen Han has shared with me. And so when you look at nature, you look at, you can see the golden mean ratio throughout life and everything, but, there's always approximations to that. So you have all these variations, and that's why life forms take different shapes and forms because of this nonlinear space that it exists in. So let's see, that goes into the void.
So interesting, non-linear, because who was that that gentleman, Terrence Howard maybe, was talking about how it was really the curves and the space, and how our Euclidean geometry was kind of, lacking that aspect. But anyway.
Yeah, it's based on the perfect geometry of the flower of life. But when it goes into the void, it's all over the place.
It's goo. It's goo. There's another good question, is the black goo, but I won't derail you at this point.
It goes into, it's interesting, the void is something that you can access through the crystal technology. If you understand how to open the singularity vortex connects to the void, and it will connect at the highest level, highest density, which is at source. And when you imprint something with your consciousness, once you your pineal gland is like an interdimensional vortex, and when it resonates with the singularity within the crystal, you can imprint a thought pattern or whatever your vision to eternity, forever, because it's going through the void. The void, there's no time in the void, so the imprint lasts forever. And this is the basis of the technology the Pleiadians used in order to create physical reality out of etheric energy. But that goes into a whole nother area, which I could touch into if you want.
You go wherever you want. I mean, it's a fascinating, I'm always all ears.
Okay. Me too.
All right. Let's see. I'm gonna go. This is a slide. Hey, we know this guy.
Boy, that beard is long gone.
Let's see. I'm going to share a project I did with Marcel. It was a camera we imported, built back in the 1950s. Had a hell of a time getting it through customs back then, even. It could take holographic photos and can tune through the holographic field of time. It's called the Delaware camera. It was patented in 1955 in Paris, France. Thousands of photos were taken. How it works is you take a drop of blood. Since the nature of the universe is holographic, the mother in this picture of the fetus is 50 miles away. So within the drop of blood is a holographic whole of that person. Not only every aspect of their body, but also through the vector of time in their future and the past. And so how this works is, this is a camera I worked on. A drop of blood is resonated with, sound oscillators take that holographic frequency, and it's interesting, Tony, that the cavities of this Delaware camera was the same dimensions of the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid.
Right.
Interesting. And so it resonated in space in 3D, which is reflected back with these reflectors onto a photographic plate, the image, which is just capturing a slice of the holographic field, which is in 3D being projected. And here's some examples. Now this proves unquestionably that we can tune through the holographic field of time, which is one of the basis of the Medbeds. Here you could see it 1 month, 2 months, 3, and 6 months, the different levels of pregnancy going using the this coil over here is called the time spiral. Here you can see a homeopathic pill, the flower remedy of the flower you can see emanating. And here's a seed of a lily flower, a seed showing its future bulb and flowering cycles into the future. So within the seed, it's contained its future program, that what it's meant to be, what it's programmed to do.
Right, that's the quantum field, and I don't know if you're familiar with Jean Houston, but she would call that the entelechy, the essence of the thing. So in other words, the acorn has the entelechy of the oak tree. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Different semantics, but same.
Yeah, same concept. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Let's see where to go. Here's about the med beds. Alex Collier says I can tune through the time, and when all your elements of your body are optimal, they overlay it, and your body morphs into that. And the Andromedans actually call it a camera. And this is a realistic, since the prime director can't take photos yet, of what Jenhan looks like. And what he says is that some medbeds use fractal holographic technology. Let me explain. The fractal core formula of the tissue to repair is recorded, and then the perfect unaltered geometrical pattern is reconstructed and superimposed on the damaged pattern. The old pattern instinctively pairs and morphs into the new one because the universe tends to perfection. As I mentioned earlier, everything in the universe is tending toward growth and evolution and toward this perfection. So when you overlay a resonant pattern over a dissonant pattern, the resonant pattern will naturally predominate because of the nature of the universe moving toward this perfection. He says it's a holographic fractal repairing. He says sound frequencies used to tie in the new pattern to the old one. Remember how I explained earlier, holographic structures are constructed or altered by frequency.
So we're going to have to take a break here, Dan. So
sure.
We're just going to take I think it's a 2 or 3 minute break. So we'll be back in just a second, and then we can carry on this fascinating discussion.
Okay. Maybe we can fine tune exactly some areas of interest, and I'll touch those because there's a lot to cover.
Yeah, I hear that.
Unlock the mysteries of the spirit realm with the new book, Meeting Wallace. In this channeled work by renowned psychic medium Larry Costa, the reader will delve into the profound wisdom of his spirit guide, Wallace. Together, they share the transformative journey of harnessing psychic powers from the celestial plane. Discover the extraordinary psychic gifts that have empowered Larry on his path, and immerse yourself in a thought-provoking and awe-inspiring read. Meeting Wallace is a groundbreaking endeavor, and it is a perspective seen through the eyes of a spirit guide. Discover the wisdom of the spirit realm alongside actual photographs of ghosts and spirit guides. Get the book Meeting Wallace by Larry Costa at Amazon.com.
Tickets are now on sale for Rebels of Disclosure 2025, May 12th through the 15th in Grafton, Illinois at the beautiful Pierre Marquette Lodge and Conference Center. This will be a 4-day event with 12 speakers covering topics such as ET contact, experiencer testimonies, lost history, secret space programs, time travel, Illuminati, parallel realities, and so much more. Visit journeytotruth.online for more details.
The Onyx Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp full spectrum crude oil, and coconut derived MCT oil. Third party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes, made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the Unnext Network website at unnextnetwork.com. That's unnextnetwork.com.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Weeds of Wisdom podcast, and our guests tonight are Dan Willis and Tony Rodrigues. And so Dan was just explaining how the holographic technology of the Medbeds work. So you want to finish that up, Dan? And then I have something I want your opinion on. So basically what you were, I think what you were saying is that basically that we can manipulate time through the holographic field, or the void, if you will.
Rather tuned through time is more accurate.
Tuned through time, right. And so, Tony, you had an experience where you, I believe it was when you were on Mars, you had some very serious injuries inflicted. Can you talk about that experience?
Yeah, it was a combat experience with another species and local indigenous insectoids on Mars. And we were hiking and doing bounding maneuvers to, it was an experimental program to see if they could match the numbers that the insectoids could. And we were engaged, and I was badly injured and lost a lot of blood. I lost an arm and a foot, and 2 others were killed on the mission. And I got carried back to base and lost consciousness. And when I woke up, I had all my parts back together. I was literally brand new. And so I had lost a lot of blood and was kind of delirious, and they were slapping me to keep me awake. They said, "Don't go to sleep, you'll die." And as they carried me back, and as soon as I saw the doors to the base, it was like a cave, like an overhang, and it had doors in there. And as soon as I laid eyes on the doors, he let me go to sleep. And I woke up in a hospital, the infirmary, basically in the cot, and I was fixed. So it was that fast, whatever the process was. And a lot of it at the time was also considered classified. When I asked what they did to me, they said, but it was classified. There was no context.
So interesting. And so Dan, so from your perspective, and based on what you've learned about the off-planet technologies, how would you explain how, your theory on what actually happened with respect to Tony's arm and foot?
Well, I think Tony's situation was rather unique, where I highly recommend this book, Series Colony. It seems, Tony, that you were they actually had a backup body for you, didn't they?
Or the ability to grow one quickly. They did have, so we were a combat unit, and we were expected to have medical needs. So it may be possible that they had an entire body waiting for me, and it was just a matter of moving consciousness from one end to the other, which was something that was doable. So that is a technology. I think when we look at it, if I can just open this up, when I take a look at what the work is I'm doing now, which is remote viewing and remote influence, psychoenergetics, and the science behind it with the obelisks that I'm developing, and like Lear Frill, but different. There is a consciousness-based science. So consciousness is an integral part of the universe that we haven't been told that. So we haven't been told that our consciousness is anything special. In fact, in school, in the colleges, they'll tell you that animals don't have a soul. that there's no soul. That's it. It's just an automaton. It's a robot. They would have you believe that all the animal kingdom is a robot and it just can be switched off and die. That's it. And so I think any school kid with a heart knows better. So they have what I'm saying is, when I start looking at what we do consistently, week in, every single week, day in and day out, we remote view. We beat the probabilities with CRV method of remote viewing. So controlled remote viewing that's not up for debate. So you know the people have no idea what the target is. It's an envelope. We open the envelope, they get it. We look at that and we look at what consciousness is doing scientifically, because this is every week. We're not getting lucky and then next week nothing happens. It's every single week somebody produces outstanding results. So when we look at the scientific ramifications of that, I can only conclude that they have hidden all the research about our consciousness, because it's the linchpin on all of the higher technologies that they're using in these programs. So when we talk about cloning and moving consciousness back and forth, the Medbeds, fixing a body, moving it from one end to the other, this is clearly a classified science because it's obviously very, very powerful. When you look at the wall, it becomes a different wall than it was before you were looking at it. That's how powerful your consciousness is. And when we consider, I was loving it when you showed the membrane of the universes, the bubbles. So when you look at that, it's a very big magnitude from what we are. But the reality is from where we are to the smallest measurement in the universe, it's even bigger. So it's a long way to get to the smallest distance in the universe, shrinking down, than it is to get to the biggest thing in the universe is that we're aware of. Now, when we talk about the infinite bubbles, that's a different equation. That's a bigger thing. But you guys get what I mean. The known universe is closer to us than the smallest part of the universe. So that means that so the extrapolation from that is that consciousness is far more powerful and has far more output, because our perspective, we think we're small compared to the moon and the ocean and things. But in reality, your consciousness is a great deal, a universe, many galaxies worth of energy coming out of you that you occupy. So your consciousness is very, very powerful. And a lot of people don't harness their consciousness simply because they've been told that they can't. And we find that when you through meditation and practice and learning things, that we can have extraordinary results with just our mind. So I know I deviated from the original question, but I just wanted to make that point.
That's so great. I mean, I think that, the whole, everything that exists was once a thought, before it became a thing. And, I'm fascinated that it's really, the consciousness is really the energy, right? It feels like, but then it raises the question in my mind, is AI conscious? What is consciousness? I don't think so either. I just want to play, I found this like 1 minute reel from Laura Eisenhower, and I want to play it just because I think it's so interesting. And I want your perspective on what she says, because I don't think I've ever heard it said quite as succinctly. So,
what has taken over the platonic solid dodecahedron and related pentagon?
Sorry. New at this. There we go.
Programmable alien AI has infected carbon material and is what has taken over the platonic solid dodecahedron and related pentagonal geometries that build time-space constructs. These time-space constructs are instruction sets in the morphogenetic field that run into the ley lines of the planetary body. This is how they have built artificial realities and false timelines and projected them into false holograms. So the dodecahedron is connected to the ether. And with it being in reversal, that is the control of physical matter. So the inverted pentagram or five-pointed star, so prevalent in Satanism, is also symbolic of this unbroken time cycle, the vibrational prison. The fifth element connects to alchemy in our throat chakra and is key to overcoming this. It comes down to the power of our words. So dark mother reversals, Baphomet, harvesting, and siphoning. This is all this reversal of the dodecahedron, the ether element, symbolic of the pentagram going downward. And it's also known as the reversal mother. And it's the anti-female collective consciousness of the Satanists, whose accumulated collective consciousness is harvested by the negative alien agenda to gain energetic power from the Earth grid and from humanity. Thus, in order to gain full access to siphon the planetary consciousness energies as well as the human soul, that further spread the satanic forces to take power and control in the Earth. This is the entropic system put in place in all controller pillars of society in order that they can continue to hijack all aspects of the female consciousness and all of its permutations, such as the fallen goddess consciousness energies, which gives them access to the earth energy.
So I'm interested in that and your perspective on what she's talking about in terms of the inversions and the interference with our connection with consciousness.
Well, there's a lot there to unpack. Laura, well, if you see her live, it's a lot of information at once. Just that little clip, there was a lot there. Some of the stuff, I'm not sure exactly what she's talking about. A few of the points in there, but it's because they're not areas that I particularly research. I stick with things that I've witnessed that are relevant to the work what I do. When we talk about larger entities that are harvesting energy from us, consciousness energy, that would denote that there's a dimension or a state of mind or being that gives consciousness even more authority than what we give it. Even being aware that consciousness, of things like the double slit experiment, your consciousness changes quantum physics when you look at something. We all know the feeling of somebody looking at us. Somebody's looking at me, and you look and it's the camera in the room. You'll have a camera on you every day, but when somebody on the screen on the other end of the camera looks, then you get this creepy feeling. So we all know that feeling. There's a quantum membrane of consciousness that we all communicate through. I believe that we do a lot while we're sleeping in our theta. Our consciousness kind of lets go of this little pinpoint, and we do a lot of work while we're sleeping. And a lot of the research I'm doing recently supports that. So we're working on, on the shelf, we got some things that while you're dreaming. So dream work is very important. I think it's just as vital as eating, sleeping, and breathing, and not because you're scrubbing your brain and getting ready for the day, but because in that state of mind, you're actually making decisions. You're communicating with people in the future. You're acquiring permission for things that are going to happen in your life, because in that theta state of mind, we're outside of time space altogether. And,
right.
I totally agree.
I don't know how much. What's that?
Well, I just said I totally agree with you. I get wild dreams all the time, and I keep wanting to awake in the dream and say, okay, let's rewrite the script, and do a different play. But yeah, it's always profound on a different level from our waking state, but just as important.
Yeah, and I guess the whole idea that we have this direct connection to source, and I think one of the things that Laura was communicated and has communicated is there's apparently some effort by some alien races that are not obeying the prime directive to block our connection from source, to either calcify our pineal glands or put in a planetary grid network, or I think in energetic terms, to take the pentagram, the pentacle, and make it into a pentagram so that it actually is inverted just slightly, just like, instead of 432 hertz, they retune the music to 440, right? So just introducing this, for lack of a better word, static in terms of our field. I'm just so curious about that. Does that exist? And if so, what can we do about it?
So personally, I don't believe in that. I don't believe that anything can block source from you.
Right.
So you can be led astray and talk to go left when you should have went right. It doesn't matter. Source is not going to be blocked off from you. You cannot change something from something. So you're talking about source, which is the energy spring of everything that exists, time, all of it. and
energy that
some
creates
little
worlds.
part of it hiding it from another little part of it. You understand, like how
Right.
futile that sounds? It's like
Yeah.
it's like a drop of the ocean hiding another drop of the ocean from the ocean. It just can't happen. So I don't believe in that whatsoever. From my book in Star Maker, from the times that I was being put under, and I was a field operational psychic in South America, that was exactly the experience. That I was trapped in a little bubble, a little space, but somebody came and got me. So we need to understand that not only is you're coming from source, you're not here, you're not localized here. Some of you is,
Right.
but that the rest of you is back at source. And so there's no, like I said, you're not going to stop a drop in the ocean with another drop from the ocean from touching the ocean. It's just not, it's just, that's the way it is. Like every proton of energy, every turbulent, everything in the unified field, all of it is the same exact thing. There is no hiding it. So they can trick you into, like I said, going left when you should have went right. But ultimately that comes up to your core inner being, your sovereignty and your conscious decision. So you're always going to have a decision to make. Either I have to stay here. I'm not going with you in that direction. That's not for me. There's always a decision. So I just don't give them that much power. Turning a pentagram upside down doesn't mean anything to me. It's a sticker. I'll turn it back the other way. Doesn't mean you're good either. So that's how I feel. That's my opinion.
They don't have much power because it's an uphill battle. If you can put up the slide I just showed. Jenhan says, dissonance cannot attune to an ordered state of geometrical resonance. The matrix that we're in is in an ordered geometrical state of resonance. Everybody's familiar with Dr. Emoto's water crystallization. You have a hatred thought, you've got, jealousy, envy, anything that's dissonant, that's not like gratitude, love, joy, it doesn't take form in the structure of the matrix. It doesn't have the power because it's not resonant. Love is the most powerful. It's the most powerful in the universe. I just wanted to share with you, zooming back here through time, that this experience that you mentioned I had in 1977 was with a being called an emether. This is out of Elena's book, detailing that she actually saw from the Galactic Federation database 110 different species. Very benevolent. It's not like a gray. Their faces are, this is an attempt to recreate what this being conveyed to me back in 1977 is exactly as Jenhan conveyed to me about the structure of the matrix and how consciousness moves through the different densities and the geometrical relationship of that. Let's see, I want to go into some of the answer a question of yours regarding the crystal science. As Tony mentioned, and as Jenhan has mentioned many times, it's all about consciousness. Una, she's an emissary for the Intergalactic Confederation. They're 20,000 years more advanced than the Pleiadians. She says, one day you remember the highest technology in the universe is consciousness. She says of the quartz crystal that, quote, quartz is a transponder by nature. It connects to the points in the grid of space. It not only vibrates on the lattice of space, but also the lattice of time. Your science will soon discover this. Quartz is the highest state of solid matter before the state of light. That is why quartz can heal tissue. And she explains it this way, quote, it doesn't reorganize matter on a molecular level, but repairs by transponding the injured organic tissues with a vibratory key of a previous state before the alteration was made. In other words, if you damaged your arm severely, in the lattice of time before the damage happened is a perfect unaltered pattern. So it reorganizes dissonance with a resonant template. So, what happened with Tony, they may have used that technology on his body. He went unconscious during that time. So, it's hard to define what system that they were using, but this is this aspect of being able to tune through time, and the fact that the quartz has all of your past resonating into this lattice matrix of time, that the most, as Jen Han has said, you know, the most resonant pattern will predominate. And so this is how situations get healed, you know, through time. I'm going to go a little quick refresher here on crystals, about how this is something Marcel would have loved to have known, that you have to cut the crystal in accordance with the natural structure of the lattice, both vertically and laterally, and then terminate with 60 degrees and 51.843 degrees. That the 51.843, the pyramid angle, same as the Giza pyramid, it acts as a transponder. Dynamic geometry, some shapes, because of their proportion, naturally affect the holographic structure of the matrix. They use this to build their frill generators. The 60-degree angle, because the matrix of reality is tetrahedral, every angle on a tetrahedron is 60 degrees. So it's like form resonance with the structure of the holographic matrix, which is tetrahedral in nature. Tony knows this. 60-degree pyramidion on top of an obelisk. Now, Jensen had said my mission was to teach the Terrans how to change their reality, and to teach them how to open the vortex and modify the holographic matrix. Now, he revealed to me that in the time of Atlantis, I was a scientist working with the large crystals in the capital city of Atla, and that my specialty, of all things, was medical holographic science, which is probably why I have a big interest in the medbed technology. And so I may have pulled from a past life memory or something to ask a particular question, which was, is there a dimensional portal between the charged triads of the lattice structure? And they said, we can't answer that because it's on the list of things we're not supposed to answer because of the prime directive. And so a long thing happened. Thorhan had to go to the high command, and they authorized the release of this information, which happens to be the key information of how they they power their entire planet using this technology. And he describes the phase conjugation node within the vortex singularity of the crystal. It works by finding the phase conjunction node by projecting inwards the geometrical shapes of the two opposite points. Like a mirror, there is the vortex singularity of the crystal. If you focus your thought and energy just there, and I love to work with Tony on this, some of his remote viewing operations, you may project your consciousness to anywhere you wish in this universe, other universes, other densities, other dimensions. Anything is accessible in space, dimension, and time. He's telling, Elena's relaying this to me. This is great power, Elena. It's very important information. I'm honored to be allowed to share this with you. So I was able to get authorization to share that with the people of our planet.
That's amazing.
And here within the Flower of Life, you can see I also asked him about the hexagonal pentagonal relationships of these geometry of these angles. And he says the ratio of the hexagonal pentagonal multi-layered blueprint applied to a living organism will produce cellular evolution, humans, plants, stars, and so on. The ratio is the key to life, and also represented in the blueprint, you know, as the flower of life. Those who understand the secret geometry of the flower of life can create universes and life forms to populate it. And here I illustrate it where you can see the hexagonal, pentagonal, the 60-degree angle, and the 51.843 angle geometries, all within the flower of life. These nodal points where the tips point is going to the next, if you take a vesica Pisces and then put one surrounding that one, another one surrounding that one, going into infinity. It's like it connects to one dimension to the next with that particular size. Our DNA has this hexagonal, pentagonal. The 60-degree angle, this is like the female, you could say. It's a receptive angle related to the golden mean. This is more the active. It imprints into the holographic matrix. It's based on the tetrahedron. Is that some rattling going on? Is that you, Tony? Okay, all right.
I'm muted.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Anyway, when the angles of inclination create different frequencies of vortex spin. When they come together, if it was at the same frequency, they would cancel each other out. But you need a difference in the speed rate to create a dynamic for the experience to tend toward perfection. Since nothing in the universe ever reaches the absolute point of perfection, the universe is alive through the dynamics. And so this is how the Pleiadians create physical reality out of etheric energy. Jenhan says a 51.843 angle geometry, on this end, transpons the etheric energy, and the 60-degree angle imprints it into the holographic matrix of the universe on this end. This is a great network. This is how we implement etheric energy into physical reality. And this is how the liminal geometric point of transfluxation, otherwise known as the eye of the crystal, where the two vortices converge, and there's this transfluxation of the singularity vortex, allows the intentions of consciousness to imprint a geometric thought pattern. The double-coiled torsion fields look like this. This is a Kirlian photograph I shared with Jenhan. He says the pyramidion creates a frill vortex. Frill is the etheric energy. The vortex you depict in this visual is the etheric energy harvested by the pyramidion. The dynamic influx of harvested energy, the mathematical ratio of the pyramidion, generates a double-coiled torsion field. And so you have these two double-coiled torsion fields that are created by the pyramidion angles that are coming together. And he says the two dynamics twirling in opposite directions create a phase conjugated tension that creates a singularity in the hologram, a convergence of infinite power. That's a little animation. My dear friend Steph, Elena's sister, helped me with this one. And
like the chakras, actually. Isn't it how the chakras also work? It seems very similar to me.
Well, this a lot has to do with vortexes, but nothing happens until you piezoelectrically stimulate the crystal. It remains dormant. To activate and open the eye of the crystal, it needs to be piezoelectrically stimulated. This creates a dynamic reaction between the two polarities of the charge triads of the lattice structure and creates an exponential reaction that triggers the singularity portal. This was the question I asked Jenhan, if this was what happens, and so it is. It's located here where the two angles of inclination meet. It's like a flat vortex. That's now I take a little piece of tape, and put it on the crystal, so I know where to put my fingers to do a little squeeze. Every time it squeezes, it opens the vortex momentarily, which you can use for a lot of different things, for healing and different things. But if you want to keep it open constantly, like Tony has a setup like this, silver electrodes to a function generator pulsing at 20 hertz, newer designs that have evolved. Here's one you can see with the crystal in it. We call this a reality transflux modulator because the conscious intention is modulating the transfluxation and is actually altering the structure of reality. In order to be effective, you need to be in gamma brainwaves. A lot of times it's expressed as a deep love for all beings. Our pineal gland, Jenhan says, the crystals in your pineal gland are calcium carbonate, which are organically produced by the tissues of the human body. These microcrystals generate an electromagnetic field at the center of which is an interdimensional vortex for consciousness. This is how our consciousness connects to our avatar and operates our body, is through this gland. He says humans across all races of our species on any world have this vortex gland. The reptilians and the grays don't have it. That's why they're unable to access what we are able to. So it's this interface between the pineal gland and the vortex of our pineal gland and the crystal that interfaces with that. You can do all kinds of amazing things. But anyway, it goes into a more conversation. So I just wanted to touch on that aspect of how when, and he's given a lot of techniques for healings, which I have to use medical disclaimer, of course. You know, ask your doctor if it's right for you, right? But you can imprint when the vortex is open and imprint into the holographic matrix through the void and imprint a pattern that will continue. And because the pattern continues, because it's out of linear time, it will perpetuate into coming into manifestation using the morphogenic keys of the universe, which is revealed in the flower of life.
That's so fascinating. You know, and the thing for me, Dan, that I love about this is that it gives my left brain a way to comprehend what my right brain learned in other ways. And you know, I follow Abraham Hicks, and so that, you know, that collection of non-physical entities talks all the time about the vortex and how, you know, being in this state of non-resistance, you know, you're automatically in a state of unconditional love until you do something to that thing you do, which you know, they talk about, you know, that keeps us, you know, out of whack or not tuned to the frequency we want to be tuned to. And so it's so interesting to me how, and then that also relates really back to some of the native traditions where they, you know, the Hopi in particular, talking about, you know, the two paths and the path of technology versus the path of nature, and how, you know, and so it's fascinating to me how this actually works. You know, by the way, I thought I was going to be an engineer one day. I actually spent a semester at Purdue, so I'm fascinated by the math and science of it all as well. But I think we're all kind of saying the same thing, but just describing it from our perspective on the prism, if you will, right? It's like, oh, okay, I see it this way, and I describe it this way, but I think we're really all talking about the same thing.
A lot of the semantics. I can let's see. I just put together a huge, massive. This is how they power their planet. They wrap the crystal. I mean, we're talking about crystal, talking about things that are like 10 feet tall, you know, on their planet. They wrap it in copper and silver in two different directions and pulse it at the frequency of quartz at 4096, and then it opens the vortex eye. When that happens, frill emanates from it, and that's how they power their planet. They use quantum entanglement in order to power secondary devices on their planet. That's his older sister. She's 160 years old. She's
wow. I want her face cream.
Oh yeah, they age better than us. But yeah, we actually made one of these and presented it. Tony was there with me back in Orlando, Florida. Our first made on Earth frill generator crystal. And we had 3 crystals made as gifts, which Elena hand delivered to Thorhan Una. And just recently, Jen had to work on Mars. So just recently, a couple of days ago, she went on board the scout ship physically. This is channeled stuff, and handed him his crystal. He was quite taken back that he said, "This crystal has my name on it." You know, we call it in honor of the pioneering work of Marcel Vogel and the new information from Jen Hanna-Redion, we call it a Vogel-Redion crystal, just to differentiate it, because it takes certain specifications need to be taken into account when creating the crystal. So we call it a Vogel-Redion.
Can you talk about that? Because we do have a question. How does one obtain a perfect
Crystal Light and Sound, our dear friends Becky and Russell, they've been so supportive. They're very affordable. So far, quartz is getting more expensive all the time, but they have been having their cutters cut it. I have zero financial interest in all this, but I'm just grateful that people have a source, and you can get a small crystal like this for under $200, considering quartz is quite expensive and cut to those specifications. And what it can do is, the small one works just as good as the large, more expensive one, because it still opens the vortex. And actually, it's a little easier to open the vortex because it's not as big. So, and your fingers will, but that goes into the whole thing on healing for another day. But
Oh, that's really amazing technology.
Right.
I actually have a couple of other crystal questions. Hang on a second on my list. Okay, we talked about crystals, how they work. One of my listeners wanted to know if you're going to be doing more coursework in terms of.
Oh, yes. We just finished recording. It's compiles 3 years of knowledge that we've received, and Elena and we just finished recording it, and her sister's working on post-production and the graphics to make it more visual, and so it's currently being worked on, and it will be released. So it's going to be, our first class was on choosing a crystal, second class was on the importance of clearing the crystal, and now this one's going to be on the crystal science, which is a prelude to crystal healing, which or applications of the crystal. So you have to understand the science before you can actually use the crystal, because you got to know what you're doing and what the crystal is, what your consciousness is, what's the the whole connection of everything to be effective.
Well, and I think anytime you're working with very powerful energies, at least in my experience, you want to make sure that you're coming at it from a, how shall we say, perspective of love and offering, as opposed to control. I call it the power with dynamic as opposed to the power over dynamic, right? You're seeking knowledge so that you can, have power with, not to dominate. Frequency of love. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Here's a couple of super quick basics regarding quartz crystals and water are both interdimensional bridges. They exist in multiple densities and dimensions at the same time because they're a natural bridge. That's an important concept, and it can embed consciousness. The tetrahedral fractal geometry is the secret of the universe. It's how the universe is created, with its tetrahedral geometry. All of our elements, the periodic table of elements, are tetrahedral arrangements. Holographic geometry is made up of light, matter, and energy. I was asking him how the replicators work on board the Excelsior, and he gave a kind of a detail on how you can create a cheeseburger and a chocolate shake out of the ethers.
Will it be healthy for you when you make it in a replicator, or?
It depends what you program in. It's the different thing.
No, yes, the food up there, they would scan us in the morning as we passed on our way to work, and it would tell what nutrients your body didn't have, and your food was tailor-made to you. So it didn't matter what you got. You could have got chocolate cake. It wasn't made out of chocolate cake. It tasted like it, but it had your nutrients in it. So the food was healthier.
Yeah. Tony, you actually had the experience with this stuff. I'm getting this information secondhand.
Also, it was boring. The food was boring. The food that was healthy for you was boring. It wasn't a substitution for the real thing. So it was close. It was food, and it had all your nutrients, but it wasn't super delicious either.
But you didn't go hungry though.
That's right. That's right. And I kind of, there are aspects of it that I miss.
Yeah, I bet. We live in a stage 2 civilization with a big giant curtain of secrecy that we're actually a stage 3 civilization that has interstellar capability and contact with extraterrestrial life. And so it's a problem of decades of psychological warfare that has been instilled in our minds that eventually we're going to start having Space Force saying, oh, guess what? We just discovered anti-gravity, So
Right.
it have to acclimate us into this reality that we're actually a stage 3 civilization.
Right. So it's break time again, folks. So
Okay.
just hang on. We're going to be right back in a couple of minutes to carry on this fascinating conversation with Dan Willis and Tony Rodrigues. Thank you so much.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to research a haunted house can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com.
Well, if people want to learn more, because we have a lot of information, they can also see the study results and go through a lot of stuff. Or if they want to purchase, you guys are going to have to provide a link. Yeah. Now, there's no membership fees. There's no obligation. This is not an MLM. This is not you got recurring fees, or there's no catch, okay? People are going to sign up, give up their name and their email, and make their password. They accept the terms and conditions, and they go right through. And that's the way it works. So you don't have to buy every month or none of that kind of stuff.
Hi, welcome back, everybody. This is Weeds of Wisdom podcast on the KUNX network, and our guests tonight are Dan Willis and Tony Rodrigues. And Dan was just explaining the geometry of thought and how it works in the holographic structure. So please continue, Dan.
Yeah, everything is geometry and frequency. When we think, we actually project complex geometrical patterns. And as John Han says, when this thought pattern is stronger, it reshapes the holographic grid of reality, we can actually, because we're fractals of source, we're dual in nature like source is, we actually have the power to create and change reality. Breath, when you pulse your breath, this is what Dr. Marcel Vogel discovered, through the nostrils like a kundalini breath of fire, like that, coupled with consciousness. The consciousness is embedded in the breath pulse and it impregnates into the crystal. And so short, precise, like a pulse is what is most effective. And Marcel was able to measure this, on a script chart recorder hooked up to a plant. Our DNA is in quantum resonance with a planetary matrix. Like Jan Hanaredian was born on the planet Era, so his DNA is in resonance with the planet Era. So our bodies are linked through this quantum resonance to our particular planet.
And actually, I want to talk a little bit more about the squiggle with the plant, because for me that was a big deal. Because I've seen research where they actually hook up plants, and in a completely separate building, they give death to brine shrimp, and the plant actually reacts to that. So, but this was, very, it was like energetically, it immediately knew that the life force was leaving entities close by, and it reacted. So talk a little bit about Marcel's experience and how this really got him into the whole, I think, woo world, if you will.
Oh, yeah, he had 140 patents, developed the liquid crystal displays you see on your monitor, hard drive coating, color TV phosphor. He's an incredible genius. But he was more right brain than the engineers at IBM. And so he keeps coming up with all these inventions. He would work on it all night, and he would relentless like a pit bull. He wouldn't let go until he found what the answer was. And so they wanted him to influence these left brain engineers. So he had to give a course of creativity. He heard this article by Cleve Baxter, who was a polygraph expert for the CIA, with plants, and he immediately crumpled it up and threw it in the trash and thought this was garbage. And then he thought, no, let's just be good for the creativity for the engineers. So he set up a split leaf philodendron, hooked up a script chart recorder. He burned the leaf, and as soon as the thought formed in his mind, it squiggled like that. He said that squiggle changed his life. Now, he did this from in his laboratory from 7 miles away. He was able to set up with a colleague and cause it to squiggle. Then he went all the way across the planet to Prague, Czechoslovakia, and set it up with his colleague in San Jose, and was able to make the plant squiggle by tuning into the plant. So, the inverse square law of distance doesn't apply. It's instantaneous in the quantum field. Right.
Thanks. Sorry to interrupt, but I just find that so fascinating that really it was the plant that sort of, this reaction, because it had reacted when he burnt it, and then it just reacted when he thought about burning it. He wasn't burning it over and over again. It was just him, the very thought of doing that was what caused the plant to react as if it had been burnt. If
right. And breath connected with that. That's why, he studied pranayama yoga. And so, he found that's how he developed the pulse breath. But what happened was he was doing a lecture about the plant stuff, and the lady said, I've been told to give you this crystal, and he thought, oh God, woo stuff, right? And so he lost it, and then she gave him another one, and he had a colleague at IBM that had a back problem, and he pulsed his breath with the intention of healing it. It healed the guy's back problem, and so he felt like he wanted to be able to let's see, going back through time here. He had this dream to cut the crystal in a dipyramidal form, which is interesting. It's very close to how The Pleiadians formed the crystals, and the Alteans, which are 20,000 years more advanced, they still use the same geometry. And so I drove to the mines in Arkansas and brought back a huge batch of crystals, and he was cutting them in his garage for 24 medical doctors. He started with 4 sides and then started increasing the sides with the concept of it's more of a vortex spin with more sides. But he said, only up to about 14 sides. But Jen Han was more generous. He says up to 24 sides, you still have the vortex spin. And Vogel crystals do work, but they're using the radiance from the quartz. They're not using the vortex eye of the crystal, which allows you to alter the holographic structure of reality, which can be used in healing to affect more effectively than what Marcel was able to do. But he was able to, train doctors. And, the first time I met with him, I drove up to his home, knocked on the door in the evening, sat down with this doctor, and the woman brought her, she knew he was doing healing work, brought her daughter who had a humor sticking out a ½ inch on her ankle, and in front of the doctor and myself, actually dematerialized it out of physical reality. And that's what left an incredible imprint on me. And he invited me to be a research associate. So that's how that whole situation evolved. And then we, were researching the crystal skull, which we found, it embeds consciousness. So they used it as a transfer device from one being to another. And then
well, it makes sense. I mean, the quartz is what they use for computers, so it makes total sense to me that that's what it was used for in the ancients and in the other galaxies, I would imagine.
Yeah, it embeds consciousness. It's such an elaborate structure. In fact, and this is from Atlantis, a photo I took when I knew Dr. Ray Brown, inside Atlantean pyramid. This is advanced Altean technology. But let's see, what was I going to cover here? Yeah, love. It's really important. It's what bridges, us to the higher densities. And we're familiar with that. And here's the fascinating thing that Jen had shared with me what the structure, water and quartz, love and light are all on the same frequency. They're all fractal core formulas of it. The resonant frequency of quartz, which is in synchronized frequency with source, is 4096 hertz. In this dimension only, it may be in other dimensions, but it's particular for our dimensional sphere. And that's how they oscillate the lattice structure of the quartz, and that's how you can clear. Our engineer made a small device that is crystal controlled on a precise frequency. It has to be precise. Tuning forks don't cut it. They're not close enough on frequency. But if you put that frequency on a crystal, the sound of it will bring all dissonant patterns vibrated out of the lattice and bring it absolutely clear. And we've had this verified by Una, who's quite advanced and all that.
Well, you want to start with a clear tool, right? Because you don't want to have any of the other gooey energies that might have from the previous use, right?
Exactly. You have to start with clean tools.
Right.
Tony, do you have one of these? That's
a little electronic clearing thing.
My mic is muted. I do have one of those.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I keep it in my truck so that when I go to crystal shops, I clear them all out.
Try this. Next time you get a glass of water, put it over a glass of water for a few seconds. Visualize also. Consciousness is always important. The water will be healthful, and it will it resonates. It removes the dissonance out of the water. I've been doing that ever since. Also, I asked, what the frequency of, what frequency of light, what's the frequency of water, what's the frequency of quartz. I asked all these different questions. And one thing that was interesting was the frequency of water is 2.45 gigahertz. Why does that sound familiar?
2.45
It's right.
gigahertz.
Yeah. It's right smack in the middle of the Wi-Fi band. He has warned that the frequencies that are putting out are harmful because of the waters in our body and the liquid crystals. Also, that's the exact frequency microwave ovens used in order to cook food, because it resonates the water molecule to cook the food. And so I always recommend everyone to opt for an Ethernet adapter. You'll get a higher speed. You don't have the convenience of walking around with the Wi-Fi, but your environment will be free of that frequency. That it's like there's so many things to counter on this planet for your health. It's just one less thing that can impact you is the Wi-Fi frequencies. And they've done experiments with plants, and the plants don't do very well with
right with the I've seen the one where they microwave the water and they water the plant with the microwaved water, and the plant ends up dying. And actually this kind of leads us into some questions that we have that have come in from some audience folks. Now, Tony, for the people that have read your book, we understand, when we have about 20 minutes left, people understand that you were basically a slave. And so I guess the question that rises in my mind when we're talking about love and frequency and consciousness and so on is, is slavery sort of the model around the galaxies? Or, is there a place where people live in harmony and freedom, or is that just some, what's your perspective on that?
Well, when you talk about a size of a galaxy, it's actually there an unimaginable amount of worlds. And so many of them have slavery, many of them don't. There is a mixture. Slavery, so my very first year at the Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection conference, I presented on the economy in space and how it works, and was able to demonstrate with our own history of slavery that it's ultimately self-defeating for a society to maintain slavery for a lot of different reasons, but for the most part, it stifles their own innovation. The advent, when everybody is free or everybody is working in a society, the advent of technology is necessary. But in a slave society, it's not necessary. You have slaves doing everything, so nothing gets innovated. So the slaves don't have the compulsion to make their jobs better than what they are, because they're slaves. There's no reward for it. So they do the same thing. But if everybody's working for themselves, they're finding better, faster ways to do the work. And so it advances. And there is a ceiling of slavery in general that, we are currently probably enslaved by other species on the economic level. So other groups. And so we don't even realize it. But we have the ability to pay ourselves out of our situation. So it's not perfect. It's not the ideal situation, and it will change. But right now we're in a way that's different than slavery. We are economical slaves to a degree, because there's no escape. You can't pay off your home and quit paying taxes. So there's just no escape from from entropy, financial entropy.
Right.
However, there are places, and there is a way, in the future, that it will not be like that. There were worlds, there were people that I visited from worlds that there were entire species that never used money, and they would come and have to get a special pass to interact on the colony. And they were found they had an unlimited account given to them. So people from the species that from a world that didn't have money were given an account with an unlimited amount of money. And what they found is that they didn't spend much. They didn't have the sickness that we have of consumption. So we all do. We all have it. because we are subconsciously aware that our financial situation is entropic. We're aware that if we don't spend it, it'll be taken from us by some kind of means. And so people hoard and consume.
It takes us into that scarcity mentality, that scarcity mindset.
And on the flip side of that, people that are wealthy that have lots will consume out of ego to say, I can consume better than you can consume. And so that's in a nutshell what slavery is. And so we'll know it'll have. So in my presentation, I said, look, we don't have to fight slavery. It'll eventually make itself obsolete. Slavery doesn't. It shoots the entire society in the foot, and the people have been benefiting from it will eventually realize that when we are on par with the rest of the galaxy. So when they see that these worlds that are free outperform them, then the lust for power and slavery it'll lose its sweetness. So that's just the reality of out there. It works in certain pockets. Slavery works when you're on an island,
Right.
But not when you're on a giant, vast land and you have neighbors. Slavery will ultimately hold you back. And so that's the situation up there.
Fascinating. And so is AI, artificial intelligence, and transhumanism, is this a positive or negative development from your perspective?
It's a technology. So it's a technology, the same as a tractor or the car. So look what it did to horses and what the world was, the cities, the landscape, everything changed because of the car. And it was evil and it was wonderful. So it's a technology. AI is the exact same. It's another technology. And we have a long way to go. And AI, currently the public AI, and I'm talking about the public version, is nothing more than a reflection of your prompts. So you're putting in information and asking for it to do something with it, and it reflects that information back by what we made on the other side of the internet. So it's only a reflection. It's not really thinking very well. There is AI. I wouldn't be surprised if we have Ascension AI existing right now for the corporate sector, that there is Ascension AI that's got a bit of awareness. But ultimately, we're not going anywhere. So people are always going to be more in connect. We're the drop of water inside the ocean, and then AI is a foreign body in the ocean. So it's never going to get it.
That's a great analogy. It's so useful. Did you have a perspective, Dan?
Just mentioning the ocean, John Hand said that water is like, it doesn't have a soul as we know, but it embeds consciousness. And that is like artificial intelligence, only it's organic.
Interesting. So part of what we're seeing today is a lot of nanotechnology. And, I have some folks in the audience that are, have been struggling with things like Morgellons and things like that for many years. What's your perspective on the nanotechnology, Morgellons, that sort of thing? And is there a solution for folks, or is that part of I guess the package in terms of where we are on the planet at the moment? Either of you.
You just have to tune back through the vector of time before all those things, nasty little things, got in your body, and reformulate yourself. But we have to clean house first with the what they call the deep state elements before we can release these technologies that have the potential to being weaponized. So we don't want to release all this. And it's kind of a psychological acclamation of a disclosure plan that is unfolding, that was given back in 2023 in January to the Earth Alliance, that we started to see some of the drones back in 2024. Some of it was from the Galactic Federation of Worlds and Intergalactic Confederation, along with deep state drones as well. But according to our friend JP, Tony and I know, they're going to have cylindrical cigar-shaped crafts start appearing in the skies, and probably after that we'll probably start seeing the huge motherships, is my guess. Just kind of a slow acclimation. Already, you see so many YouTubes of people, different phenomena in our skies happening all over the planet. So it's making people start to question what our relationship is with our galactic community.
Interesting. All right. So given that we don't have the Medbeds just yet, I actually was a little shocked. In our last episode, I was talking to Matt Hazen, who founded Masterpiece, because I tested myself for metals, and I came out very high in several, including the worst was lead. And so I'm working right now to get the lead out in a safe and effective manner. Get the lead out. Get going.
An old saying.
Yeah. And I was fortunate because, they actually called me. It was so high. It's supposed to be 1.2 or less, and I'm at 14. And I haven't had significant lead exposure for at least 30 years that I know of. So what's your perspective on I guess, it seems like there's a lot of interference being introduced, either through nanotechnology, frequencies, 5G, ELF, whatever it is, that seem to introduce static into our environment. So we are directly connected with source, and you can't mess with that, right? That's my big quibble with religion, really, because they all want you to go through somebody else to get to your source, right? So how do we, where do you think we are in terms of our evolution? And where do you think, what do you see happening in the next couple of years here on planet Earth? What's your perspective?
I think we have a long way to go, and I think we're going to make a very quick post-disclosure. We're going to make very, very quick changes. I think that the trend that we've seen for the last 20 or 30 years is the elites at the top that have done everything in their power to make themselves smarter and healthier. The elite, the people that are in charge of the pharmaceutical corporations, the people that are in charge have done everything they can to make themselves smarter. And they realize they hit a limit. And so now their strategy is to make everybody else dumber. And that's why we're getting poisoned on the scale that we are. And now with AI, they're going to have the robotic workforce is going to take a lot of the medial stuff. And so they're trying to you can see that they're doing things that are aimed at reducing the overall numbers in the population. So that's a whole separate show we could have. The things to do with that, to look into the future, if I was a young man, maybe I feel young today, but if I was a younger man, I would be looking at individual skills. So things that only you can do. So to be creative. So AI is not creative. It's reflective of our already made creativity. So it's beautiful at that and wonderful. It's perfect for that. But what I'm saying is the human isn't going to go out of the equation yet. But we are going to, in a very short time, we're going to get rid of the McDonald's worker. We're going to move away from the, hey, pick these bricks up here and put them over there. And there's a lot of people out there busting their backs today doing stuff like that. So that's going to disappear, and we're going to have a lot of people around that are wanting a non-skilled thing to stay alive. And the reality is we all need to develop individual skills moving forward. And that's what's going to happen. So post-disclosure, it'll happen very, very quickly. I feel that access to the interstellar internet is going to be very, it's going to run through society like a wave. When you can Google what did the Greys and on Alpha Centauri eat for dinner, and you get an answer, the real answer with pictures of other planets. When we get that level of access to the database that certainly is up there, everything's going to change, and people are going to see that we're not what we thought we were in the cosmos, that we're a part of a bigger community, and that there is a lot of open-mindedness that needs to happen. So
Right.
I don't know if that's pertinent to your question at all. I kind of went on a side little tangent, but it's true.
No, I love,
believe
you know,
that.
because yeah, you know, that's, you know, everybody, you know, has a perspective and where we are in the path, and I'm fascinated to hear it. I'm very optimistic to hear it. Dan, what's your perspective? Want to close this out? We have about 5 minutes left.
Can you put up the screen real quick? I'll just show how I spent 10 years meeting with scientists and inventors to try to bring out a technology solution. But the Invention Secrecy Act, back 1951, actually, anybody that's got anti-gravity, free energy, methods or compositions for prolonging life or preventing aging, treatments to enhance intelligence, all part of a sensitive application warning system. You get a national security order. So this is just an indication. You can remove the screen.
The native plants, I'm very familiar with that one.
To show how we have been technologically retarded and suppressed for so long. And I totally agree with Tony. Once we, you know, everything is going to change. My God. My biggest, you know, my great-grandfather was the president of Homeopathic Medical Society going up against Rockefeller in the early 1900s. So my greatest passion is to see the corrupt medical system completely revamped it with these new modalities to end so much suffering on this planet. I mean, we only last, you know, the Pleiadians lived 900, 1500 years. We drop off around 80 or so. And there's just so much needless suffering. But, you know, everything, transportation, our harmful electromagnetic communications will go to quantum. You name it. Every aspect of life is going to transform, and it's going to happen very rapidly. Once it starts, the ball is going to snowball with one revelation after another. But we're at the kindling stage right now of just the beginning of it.
Right. Well, and I guess somebody else was talking about where we are with respect to the photon belt, and how, you know, all of the energies of where we are on our planet are actually being upgraded. So I'm optimistic. Do you have a particular perspective on timelines, and can we pick a timeline, or are we just stuck with what we've got here?
You can't give dates. It's all based on events about how it unfolds, and it's a dynamic situation that's completely changing. But my own perspective, I'm very, very hopeful that it's going to go into. And our mutual friend Elena Danaan went aboard a Metatron ship, saw 20 years in the future in a time-looking device, and it was beautiful. So it's just a matter of getting from here to there, but the end result is going to be good.
That's phenomenal. Well, you know, and that's what it means when we say that the universe tends toward perfection, right? And we're hardwired for that, really. And it's only when we resist that or push against something that we interrupt that flow of energy. So I'm very encouraged, actually, because I think it's very exciting times. So much is being revealed that has been hidden for really centuries and centuries. My website's Ancient Mother Wisdom, because I'm, you know, part of my work is to bring back all of the suppressed information about how to work with your energy and with the plants. And I'm not much into technology, but I'm really blessed that I have people like you that are able to, and because the crystals are a beautiful technology that I'm going to be exploring more as I go forward. So I just wanted to say thank you both. I appreciate your work, and I hope to see you. I don't know if either or both of you coming to St. Petersburg later this year for full disclosure now, but if you are, I'd certainly love to see you and spend some time. But
Kimberly,
thank you so
you
much.
ever have any questions on techniques to use? I know you went for a crystal grouping to use it.
Yeah.
Feel free to ask,
Yeah.
and I'll show you how to do it according to our friends upstairs, how they shared with me.
Perfect. And the best way to reach you fellas, Tony, your website is Tony Rodrigues. That's GUES.com.
With
and
an
then
S, yeah.
what? With an S, yes, not a Z, people. So let's see. Okay, I see you made your name that. That's good. Okay, and then also Psion.com, PSIION.com.
PSIION is a series of products that I've made for helping people. They've been a big hit. We didn't talk about any of that. I didn't do any sales pitches on the technology I've worked on this year and developed. It's based on Dan's work and what Marcel Vogel's work. And I've made a series of binaurals. They have white noise and subliminal affirmations and very, very specifically tuned binaurals. And they're very potent, and they therefore protect yourself, to have a successful mindset. Some of them for remote viewing sessions I made, that are tuned to the human resonance, and they're very effective. So those are on Psion.com. They've been a big hit. So that's why I wanted to put that on there. There it is. It's going along the bottom now. So thank you.
Yeah, it's going along the bottom now. Okay, how about you, Dan? What's the best way for people to follow your work?
In honor of Marcel, his pioneering work, I put together a site called marcelvogel.org. And that goes into all the crystal technology with Jen Hanna-Redian. So everything shared, the slides and everything are all there, and as well as crystal techniques with medical disclaimers, of course, and the webmatrix.net is what after I testified in 2001, a media company wanted me to write an article about control of mainstream media, and so it's kind of like a chronology from the beginning of the 20th century to present day of how our planet's been under psychological warfare, hiding this reality for a long time, and it got quite extensive and long, but those are the that's it. Yeah, right down below. Yeah, the two websites.
Oh, that's wonderful. All right, and then for anybody, I was talking about Masterpiece last week, but so far so good. I love Masterpiece because one of its 3 ingredients is an ether factor, which incorporates the sort of non-physical aspect of love, and then it's just basically lava, zeolite, and sea plasma. So if you're interested, please, you can use this code to get to, or you can go put in Weeds of Wisdom when you sign up, and that's my my code, and you'll get a 10% discount. So yes, so thank you both of you for joining me tonight, and I couldn't believe it's been so long, Tony. It's been almost a year since we spoke, and so what I'd love to do is get you both back on maybe end of the summer. Let's see kind of where we're at and see what kind of disclosures we might have between now and then, because I'm just feeling like it might be about time. What do you think?
Yeah, the years are working in dog years lately. So there's been a lot going on. In 1 year's time, my life has changed greatly. So yeah, I'd love to come back. I'm honored to come back. This is a great show. You guys are doing a beautiful job. So anytime I can be of help, I'm very happy to.
And I'm always happy to, with my dear friend, we don't connect. He's so busy. he's all over the place on conferences and stuff. So it's always great to reconnect with him as well and join you, Kimberly. Yeah, we'll see where the universe has evolved to at that point.
Very good. All right. So thank you, everyone. This has been Weeds of Wisdom every Tuesday on the KUNX network. Thanks again, and I wish you green blessings. Till next week. Thank you so much.
See you guys.